when it comes to people who watch this show, I think even down to the least skilled person, their survival chance in a city is going to be triple or quadruple the average person. Just because, for one reason, they see it coming. You watch a news program like this, we say, hey, look, they just deployed for combat a massive nuclear weapon. Then when the news breaks that, like let's say Putin comes out and says, mark my words, we will fire this nuke if you don't stop. You're going to be sitting there being like, okay, well, I'm going to put my bug out bag together. And then when the sirens go off, you grab your bag, you're out the door. Other people are standing around going, I wonder what's going on.
Not to toot my own horn, but I was in Boise, Idaho when the COVID pandemic, alleged pandemic, kicked off. And I remember seeing national news about the Costco in my area was running out of toilet paper. This is in January of 2020, when everyone knew it was nonsense.
Right.
And it may have been as silly as it was for people to stock up on toilet paper. I saw what was going on. I'm like, well, I'm not going to be last. So I went and stocked up. And guess what? I had Charmin, Top Shelf, the excellent stuff, sustained me through the entire...
Did you resell it for a profit?
Multiply, quilted?
It was the
Premium
quilted.
stuff.
I did not resell. I'm not,
He's like, he's in a dark alley in a trench coat, and he like opens it up and
you need.
You got it? You got that good stuff?
Woo. Give me another one.
I did quilted, man.
Break me up another square, man.
I saw a funny picture going around where it was the Purell, the hand sand. Someone had like a little baggie of it, like as if it was crack, and it said, hey, yo, text me, get at me. I got that good old Purell.
I stopped at a gas station, I think it was in Arizona, and nobody was wearing masks. I walked in the gas, because like it's the middle of nowhere, and she's like, oh, we don't care. They have mandates out here, but ain't no one going to enforce it. And then I said, so what do you think? Are you guys worried? I hear that they're running out of toilet paper everywhere. And she's like, like we're preppers. I got 3 months worth of toilet paper in my storage area. Like we didn't even think twice about it. When all this stuff started happening, we just put our feet up and started laughing. And I'm like, man, the preppers, they're having a good time right now.
Yeah.
Everybody or not everybody, but I imagine there's a significant portion of the listener and viewers of the podcast here that have taken some precautions or some steps to, do some type of prepping. If you haven't, it's a good idea. It's not a bad idea. So,
and let me add too, for political reasons, downloading Wikipedia makes no sense. That is to say, if you were to download the entirety of Wikipedia because you wanted to learn about Newt Gingrich, yeah, you're wasting your time.
Maybe go to archive it and from 5 years or 10 years ago and download it.
But I recommend everyone download the full text of Wikipedia, because if you ignore the politics, being able to read about chemical composition, drugs, there's really basic stuff in there that's life-saving in the event of like an encyclopedia that large. Look, if the world ends, you're not going to be looking up Newt Gingrich. You're going to be looking up, like North American plants. And Wikipedia will actually create categories where it'll be like, edible fruits native to North America, and you can click it and you'll see all these things, and they'll have pictures. I don't know if the pictures download with the full app though.
I've got this EMF protecting case that I put a solid state hard drive inside of, that I wrap up and then put inside of a flame repellent safe. And that you can put like Wikipedia on like a solid state hard drive inside of an EMF protector, inside of a fire protected safe.
You need more than that. That won't be enough. So a buddy of mine actually has a Faraday cage, a high quality, like government level certified for doing tests on cell networks and satellites and communications, and it does not block all EMF. It's like a shield that you walk inside and you see your cell service go all the way down.
Does EMF fry solid state drive?
I'm fairly certain, yeah. It's going to short out anything
electronic, but solid state,
like circuitry.
They're not magnetic. I know that.
But so that's not so much the issue. But with a Faraday cage, what you want to do is that EMF protector you got, EMF case, a little Faraday bag, put it in a microwave. Microwave is a Faraday cage. So put it in a microwave and put it deep in your basement. And then if you really want to be serious, wrap it in tin foil, then put it in a bigger microwave. Because, I was talking to my buddy and I said, he's got a Faraday cage. I said, so you put like a phone in there, so if a solar flare hits, you're good? And he was like, this thing's not going to protect that from a solar flare. Solar flare is going to fry whatever's inside of it. And I'm like, in the Faraday cage? Like, it's imperfect. A solar flare or an EMP is going to be so powerful, it will get through. There's going to be leakage. And I'm like, what if you put a microwave in the Faraday cage and then put something, okay, now you're good, right? You double layer it, and then the Faraday cage does provide protection, but the idea that these things will protect you guaranteed is not true. What you want to do is get a car from the 60s
Yeah,
and then just
a carburetor, a non-fuel injection. That's the key. Because a lot of people don't realize all of your cars now, every single one of them operates with a computer. And if it's not a carbureted engine, which none of them are anymore, it will undoubtedly fry. Apparently, though, unless you're in like an underground parking garage, there might be a chance. I thought I read somewhere. I don't know if that's true. But speaking of, like, when we were talking about prepping and in the context of like solar flares, a lot of people realize, because I know there's going to be some people realizing everything will be fine, it's like, but a solar flare could happen. There are natural events that are unforeseeable that have nothing to do with, geopolitical, things going on in the world. And it's just when I was growing up in Arizona, there's a large LDS Mormon population, and like it's customary to have like 3-4 months of preps. And I remember thinking that was weird at the time. Now it's like, no, that's wisdom. That's
3
smart.
months?
Yeah, I think it was 3 or 4 months minimum, like of like food. I don't know. I could be wrong.
That should
Number.
be everybody. That should be as simple and basic as it comes. You should be able to sustain yourself for at least a month by what you have in your house, even if it's like not eating the best food, but freeze-dried stuff or whatever, stuff that can give you calories so you can get through.
Safeandreadymeals.com. Not shout out. We used to do reads for them a lot more often, but now we just basically we talk about Cast Brew. And when we started promoting our own coffee brand, because we're opening this coffee shop, I was like, we're not doing these shout outs anymore. But we used to do periodic shout outs for safeandreadymeals.com, which is emergency food that lasts 25 years. Now, it's really funny because when I started promoting that, and I love telling the story, all these leftists started mocking and insulting me, being like, haha, what an idiot, what a loser. He's selling emergency food. And I'm like, it's really crazy because we all have first aid kits. We rarely use them. You are willing to get a first aid kit in the event you have a femoral bleed, but you're not willing to have food you can eat. You eat food every single day. Honest question, when was the last time you used a Band-Aid?
A few weeks ago, I guess.
Like, seriously, though?
No, just on a band, like on my finger.
Yeah, what about you? Like, used a Band-Aid?
I don't remember.
Good question.
If I cut my finger, I'll put one like Neosporin on and stuff, just so that way it heals faster.
Yeah, I don't use Band-Aids. I wash with soap and then let them air dry. Usually
rub dirt in it.
I think mine might have been like 5 months ago, maybe.
It's over 2 years for me. I don't use them.
We eat food every day. And people are like, "Oh, you're dumb for having food in the event of an emergency." Like,
they're projecting their own insecurities deep down. They know, like, or these are the same people that ran out of toilet paper. I don't know.
Right, and then fought for it.
Yeah.
Would it be good to have like a giant tub of protein powder? I imagine you could make that last. Like a year? You got a year.
Maybe.
Not sure the date, but they have expiration dates. Yeah.
But there's ways to preserve protein,
like freeze dried or something.
I mean, beans and rice can be preserved for 25 years. We have bean and rice buckets, and those form a complete amino chain.
Yeah, just buy salt, allegedly, iodized salt, and you can season. And apparently, we need iodine. I've heard different things about that, but
I bought like
salt.
10 buckets of salt.
It's so
That's
cheap.
A good thing to have.
It's a good investment, as well as lighters. By the way, it's a random thought.
Plasma lighters that can plug in.
Solar.
I have a bunch of those.
Ooh.
And then
Solar
solar chargers that you can charge your lighter off of. I carry it around with me in my fanny pack.
I guess the bigger question is, what's the likelihood of anything actually happening? And that's where people refuse to take action. But I'll just tell you, would you rather be the guy who spent a little bit of money to have a bucket of food in your basement that you might have to eat in 25 years before it goes bad? Seriously, 25 years. Or do you want to be fighting with Agnes in a parking lot of Walmart for the last can of beans?
It's the peace of mind. And the thing is, like, so I'm a prepper myself. And the thought going through my mind is like, knowing what I know. Let's imagine that the so-called event happened and somebody listening to us is like, they hadn't prepped, and then they wake up in the morning and the lights don't come back on. Can you imagine the overwhelming feeling of shame and guilt and that regret of like, oh no, I could have just used my credit card. I could have bought this stuff. I could have, and I didn't. That would consume me knowing, you know what I mean? Like, So it's like, there's no excuse anymore.
Oh, New York's going to be a sight to behold. And I don't mean that in a positive way. We have never in human history seen density to this level. We've seen great fires. We've seen war. There's the sacking of Richmond and what it's like when these cities are totally razed and in conflict and bullets are flying. World War II. But we have massively gained population in the past 100 years in profound ways. If the grid goes down in New York, I was in New York when Sandy happened, and it was already getting kind of scary. I went to a bodega, and there was a line at the door. They only allowed one person in at a time. There were two guys with like a big piece of wood, and a guy with like a crowbar guarding the store. They'd let you in, you'd walk in, and then I was like, how's it going to the clerk? And he was like, anything perishable you don't want to eat. All the stuff in the fridge is expired, but the canned stuff is good. And I was like, cool. And in the fridge, spoiled milk and cream and milk products. And I took a Gatorade and like some crackers or whatever. And I was like, yo,
it was dark in New York for like 2 days after that flood.
You were there?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, the Lower East Side had no power for like, what, 2 weeks? Something like that.
Yeah, maybe. I remember 2 days
quick,
of really dark, like weird shit.
Yep. Yeah. And like the flood damage destroyed windows and knocked over bus stand. And that's just a hurricane. And then you had the Rockaways were just
that's where I lived. I lived
out.
in Far Rockaway. Well, I moved there right after the damage, and it was wrecked. The whole coastline was wrecked.
And I actually took the train down to document the relief work that was going on, and it was crazy to see, like the boardwalks like ripped up, it's just houses destroyed.
When the lights go out in a city, man, it is another place. It's not home. It's dark and cold and fucking dangerous. You do not want to be in a city in the dark. It is terrifying.
Hard pass.
And that's after like 2 days of it being dark. I don't know. After 2 weeks of it being dark, you're going to see everything lit on fire.
I've seen I Am Legend. Warm. So I Am Legend. Remember Will Smith in New York City and Manhattan? You seen that movie?
Yeah.
But again, people watch these movies and then get these weird expectations of what things will be like. The first thing you can do, the first thing I'll say is you cannot predict what it will be like. There are certain things we can say are likely and may happen, but imagine this. What is your daily routine? Okay, imagine you wake up for your daily routine, no electricity. What's that like? I'm sure it's happened. The power's gone out. You woke up, there's no power. What did you do? Now imagine it's going to be that way for several days. If you live in a more rural area and you're on a well with an electric pump, how are you getting the water out of the ground if there's no electricity? Most people, I think, out here have backup means of electricity for that reason: solar, diesel generators, gas generators, etc. But just that's one way to consider what it would be like. Now, the question I have for you that live in the suburbs: do you think your neighbors are smart? Because if the water stops flowing and they can't figure it out, do you think that Jimmy next door will let his 12-year-old daughter starve to death? Or do you think he would, let's just say, cause harm to others, including you, if it meant protecting his children?
Jimmy will come by and knock on your door with a smile and ask if he can have some of your water rations that you don't have enough of, and you'll have to tell him no. And he'll leave with a smile. Maybe he won't be smiling as much when he leaves. The next time you see him, he won't be smiling.
Yeah, he'll be crying. He'll kick your door in
if you can see him again.
With the gun pointed at you, and he'll say, I'm sorry, before he puts one between your eyes.
Yep. You know, it's far more likely, I think, when we're talking about all this doomsday stuff. I look at people like Klaus Schwab, and when he speaks, I think we need to listen at this point. And what was it, just 2 years ago, he was talking about if there was a cyber attack, it would be worse. COVID would pale in comparison. Anyways, so a financial attack. So it doesn't necessarily attack the entire grid. We still have electricity, however, it attacks the banking system. And this could be their tactic to usher in the CBDC. Because a lot of people say, like, I'm not going to go along with that. I'm not going to go along with that. I'm like, well, unless you're starving. And by the way, when I look at all these 87,000 IRS agents, are they really hiring them to check like Venmo transactions? No. Or is it possible that once they come out with the CBDC, they're going to make any other exchange of currency illegal? Dollar, gold, anything. So what?
I got a simpler one for you. Act of war or financial crisis results in deposits being wiped out. Let's say the grid goes down, the economy collapses, something akin to a lockdown. The government says, we can insure, and we have insured your deposits. We have relief. Download Fed Bank from the Play Store and from the App Store right now, and enter in your name, your social security number, and your ID, and a picture of your ID, and you will get transferred in, the money from your account before incident occurred. And what that does is, let's say there's a financial collapse. Let's say that there is a natural disaster or an act of war that disrupts the financial sector. The economy goes to chaos. Now they simply say, oh, your money's gone, but don't worry. We've got it right here for you at cbdc.app. Download it today.
Tim, I think you're spot on. And I think this is what's going to happen, is that the way to do it isn't to force that new system. It's to get us to beg for it. Once someone's kids are 3 days without a meal, they'll please give it to me. Fine. And we'll figure something out later. We'll get this sorted out. They're going to get them to want it. That's what I fear, is that's what they'll do. They'll mess up the system.
If you have any hope of staying off of that, you're going to need a whole lot of silver dimes.
Yeah, I could imagine a lot of people won't do it, and then it'll create a subclass.
Well, I mean, obviously bullets, but the silver dimes are just because they're the gray, like a gray market is where people are going to be avoiding it. So if you are going to have the ability to stay off, you're going to need something that people will recognize as money, and silver coins would be that.
I think it'll be 9mm.
Oh, you think the bullets themselves?
I think 9mm will be currency.
I totally agree.
I got to tell you,
that
man,
should be the currency in Fallout. I've been saying that for a while.
Even right now, I don't care about silver. I get it. Silver has value. I have some silver. What I mean to say is, if someone comes to me right now and says, "Hey, I'll give you a piece of silver for that slice of pizza," I'll be like, "Bro, I don't care. Like, what am I going to do with that silver? I put it in my closet."
Right.
I understand that you can always. It is a liquid asset, sort of. You can take it somewhere and exchange it. You can get value for it. You can trade with it. It's not that easy. Bullet I could use.
And I'm totally with you, because like in my mind, I'm not convinced there won't be some crazy. I'm very curious to know what my life is going to be like when I'm at retirement age. I feel like something will happen, whether it's a pole shift, whether it's some World War III or whatever it is. And in my mind, I'm not certain that it won't come to the point where ammunition is currency. And everyone, honestly, I'm an advocate. I'm a Second Amendment advocate. I think it's about self-sustaining, and you need to protect yourself, because like, look at Hurricane Katrina, which isn't necessarily the best example, but there was a few days there where it was total lawlessness, and there was people that held down their neighborhoods by their own use of force. And so I don't know, like, anything can happen. The unpredictable can happen. If people can't take care of themselves, you should expect that no one else will.
Listen, and anyone that's listening that is a little on the young side, that thinks it's silly, the idea that a bullet or whatever could be used as currency. The reason we call a shot of whiskey is because that 1 ounce of whiskey was traded for 145 Colt long back in the old West.
Is that why?
It was a
That's
shot.
wild.
Yeah, it was a shot because it was one. You could trade one round, 145 Colt, 45 long Colt usually.
Wow.
For a shot of
Colts.
whiskey. Yeah. So
Wow.
There's a lot of stuff we can learn from the Western times, on those frontier days when it was, when there was lawlessness and marauders and the cowboys, which were a real gang.
What's that show? 1911 or whatever? No, not 1911. 1913?
23.
1923?
23,
Oh,
yeah.
I don't even know what the year the show is. But no. 18. What's the 18 one?
There's a couple of them. It's like, I think one is
1893 or something?
man.
What you're
one
telling me right
something
now
like
is don't make a show with the year as the name.
I know. Yeah, no.
yeah, seriously. Right.
Come on, who knows what is it? Because I watched it. It was awesome.
I know what you're
18
talking
something?
about. Yeah.
Yo, and it's like the Oregon Trail.
87.
1887.
Yeah, that's what someone typed in chat.
I don't know if that's true. Yeah, I'm just going
Tim
with the
Welch
number.
with the
18, yeah, they're like, we got to float the wagons across the river, and then like you just see like a woman go get washed away and die, and it's like, well, she's dead.
That's how it goes.
Or when Native Americans raid and just kill a bunch of people, and it's like, well, they're dead.
Yep.
That's just what it was. Oh, stubbed my toe. Guess I'll die.
For the record, it's 1883.
83.
There you go,
that's right.
1883.
Drama.
Right.
We're getting 1886, all sorts of years.
people just
Ian's
throwing
right.
out-
Don't make a TV show with a year in its
do it.
name.
People are just throwing on 1984.
1776. It's just trolls now. No, stop, guys.
But it's crazy that people just die all the time, like nonstop.
Yeah.
You just die.
You die of a toothache.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it.
Because
Can
it
you
gets
imagine?
infected.
Yeah,
The
right.
infection's what kills you. Not
Goes
the
into your
toothache
blood. You
itself.
go septic, and then you're dead.
Yep.
And
Dentistry's
really
incredible.
miserable way as well.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, you mentioned pole shifts earlier.
Yes.
How connected are they to like human behavior, and where do they come from?
Well, that's a very hard segue.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
About as vague as I asked. I don't know. But do you want to segue into that now? Because
Sure.
I'm burning.
I honestly, so this is complete pseudoscience, but I look at how many animals, creatures, insects, birds, whales are on this planet that are completely connected to the poles in their travels. And I do wonder, and this is, again, pseudoscience, but like, it seems like things are as crazy as ever and people are acting a bit strange. And I don't know if it's because this internet thing is causing us to go a little bit nuts as we're staring at the screens and not getting enough vitamin D. But I do wonder if it's having an effect on us. And I should look, and if you give me a second, I'm going to bring up a certain verse from the Bible. I'm not some Bible thumper, but there's something in it that alludes to how the people are going to behave in the end times. Are you familiar with this?
Yeah, I think someone cited it to us yesterday, actually.
Really?
Yeah, read it.
Well, there's a couple. So first of all, let me start with this one. This is Isaiah 5:20. Woe to those that call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. And this is in the context of end times. Is this not the upside clown world that we live in right now?
Yeah.
Actually, now that you mention it like that, yeah. And I'm an agnostic, like not a religious guy at all. So
Let me do one more. 2 Timothy 3. But understand this, in the last days, terrible times will come, for men will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, unloving, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, without the love of good, traitorous, reckless, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than the lovers of God, having a form of godliness in themselves, but denying its power. Turn away from these.
Oh, that sounds like the left.
Y'all.
Sounds like the worst aspects of me when I'm not controlling myself. I find myself doing that shit.
But so is there? Is it explaining when we expect these things to happen?
It says in the end times, and that is that is so debatable. But in my mind, I'm like, what if there's these cycles of cataclysms? And the more I've been studying this, so it goes for me looking into like cosmic impacts, which I undoubtedly do believe happen. But the more I'm looking into details as far as sun cycles and geomagnetic pole shifts, I look at things like Elon Musk is talking about how you need to go down the rabbit hole of ice ages, and I've looked into that. And if you look at like certain things like such as the mini ice age, or the little ice age as it's called, from the year 1300 to 1850, 550 years of global cooling, approximately 2 degrees Celsius, 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit, famine around vast portions of the world, reduction in livestock. That's tied to solar cycles, as well as the global, or it's believed, that's one of the speculated reasons. But there's something else, and I'll quickly say this. The Roman warming period, as it's called, which was increased warmth in the Mediterranean all the way through the UK. And that was same thing, a 2 degree estimated Celsius or 3.6 degree Fahrenheit, where there was, an abundance of vineyards, Roman vineyards in the UK, and it was warmth, and it's tied to sun cycles. So my point is that like these things have happened. You never hear about it in the context of climate change. Sorry, go ahead, Tim.
I just wanted to bring up a story as soon as you finish your point.
Oh, well, that's it. I think that these are things that need to be looked at. And then going back to like, geomagnetic having an influence on us, I'm like, why would these people found it, and again, I'm not a Bible thumper, but people thousands of years ago wrote this down and thought it was incredibly important to preserve it. And it just gives me a weird feeling that when I see that this mirrors our society to a T, and I don't want to sound Mr. Doomsday guy, but what if it's related to a geomagnetic pole shift reduction in I don't know.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.